we do have this. So thank you all for joining the Leveraging series. This is, I think, a 13-part series where we start from beginning to end, lots of different features within your system to help you gauge and gain control and stay organized and ultimately find success within your system. So today, what we're actually going to be going over is something that a lot of you guys may have already had training on, but I definitely find that having more of refreshers on them definitely do help some of individuals here forget all about your save filters. So the save filters are really built into your system to allow you to stay organized within your dashboard, but you can also create your own save filters. So creating specific audiences for yourself depending on what you are looking to target. So I'm going to turn my camera off. We are mainly focused on the screen today, so I'm just going to turn it off. So I hope everyone's well and you guys can hear me okay. Perfecto. Awesome. So for any of you guys, some of you may be new to Agent Locator, some of you may have been with us for a while, but nonetheless, it doesn't hurt to learn more about your system. So the save filters in your system are found here up in your CRM system. Now, for some of you, these are duplicated. Just ignore that. Some of you may not have these filters in your system. If you're an older client of ours, definitely anyone that's new should be seeing the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the check-ins. So those should all be prominent in your CRM system for you to utilize. Now, naturally, when we jump into our system, and what I find a lot of people will do is they will go page by page. Okay, so whether they are going page by page like this and kind of looking at everything, sometimes you guys may be using the sort order. So again, you can sort your leads based on activity and you're going this way. At the end of the day, if we're simply going page by page or just changing sort orders and what have you, you're definitely going to have leads slip through the cracks. So the filters will help to prevent that from happening to you. Okay. Now, if you guys want the save filters created, if you're not seeing them, just send an email to support@agentlocator.ca and we can literally add these in with the click of a button, okay? So the first filter that you guys see in your system is the #1 new leads with 0 calls logged. So this is essentially where you guys want to start your day. So you just simply click on that filter and it shows you all the filters that have been applied in order to create this specific audience. Now here we can see that the number of calls on these individuals equals to 0. So these are all the leads that we have not attempted a phone call, or for some of us, we're still practicing logging our calls. So it's 100% important that you log everything. We track our leads activity day by day by day and everything that they're doing. We need to do the same for ourselves. That's how we're going to become proficient in here, as well as stay on top of our databases. Now, this list is also for leads that we have not connected with. So the pipeline status is going to be on not set, new lead, or tried to contact. I'm also going to add the new one that is recently added is the non-responsive. Okay, so essentially these are leads that we have not connected with yet. Because this is a call list, we only want to include numbers that we have not deemed to be invalid, meaning we're only including numbers that we know are valid or we have yet to determine if it's a good or bad number or not. So I'm just going to save this filter because I added that new one here. Now, this filter here, as you can see, there's 84 leads in here and none of these leads have calls on them. Okay, so whether you want to start from the newest lead, so again, date created is where it's going to be set by default. This is showing you the most recent lead at the top of your list and kind of going down the list. Some of you feel more comfortable reaching out to people that are more active initially until you kind of gain that confidence with making your call. But nonetheless, our goal ultimately is to get this down to 0. Okay, so we don't want any of our leads in our system that we're not attempting any kind of communication with as far as a phone call. So when you open up this list or the first lead, you're going to notice here that there's a lead here, and then you have your lead navigation on the top right. If you don't notice your lead navigation or the lead showing here, you're going to see a button that says load lead navigation. Just click it and then you'll see it like this. So with these leads, one thing you could do is we always encourage that you use the dialer. It just automatically logs everything for you. Now, as soon as you go and you log a call on this lead, so I'm just going to call this person and then I'm going to hang up and pretend that I didn't actually talk to them and then save that call. When I go to click onto the next lead, we're going to notice that this is now dropped to 83 leads because now the previous lead, just by logging a call on that individual, they now no longer qualify to be in this filter because they don't match this qualifier right here of 0 calls logged. Okay, so with this list, depending on how many you have, so 83, I would leave it at this and just do 20 to 30 at most per day. If you guys are seeing, for anyone in here that might be in our system for a long time, and you might have a lot of leads in this list, let's say, then what you can do is add a filter item of last activity. So this is a great way to be able to narrow it down. So last activity, and then you can choose all the leads within the last number of days, meaning they've been active in the last set number of days. So we usually try to start at 30 and then you can go 60, 90. So you can slowly hack away at that list. So in this case, there isn't anyone that's been active in the last 30 days. No one's in the last 90 days. Let's see. So it's really, let's just go 300 days. This is a training CRM system, so the activity isn't going to be the reflective of your system. So here you can see just by throwing this, we've now lowered that list of 80 whatever people to now just 14. So it just makes it a little bit more manageable for you guys. If you guys add a filter and you want to save it, you just click update. That's going to save it to this filter. If you just want to temporarily have this filter on there, just simply click apply. It just shows you the results that match that criteria, and then you can still move through that call list no differently than you normally would. If you guys are logging the calls manually, again, just making sure you're logging every single call, not just the calls where you talk to people, because it's knowing when you last tried to contact someone, so you know when to do it again. If we're not tracking our activities, then we're kind of just taking a big, wild stab at it and hoping for the best at the end of the day. The more consistent we are with our call attempts, the more likely we're going to get somebody to answer the phone, right? But if you're calling me once a month sporadically, the chances of me answering are definitely decreased with those efforts. Does anyone in here have any questions about this first filter, the number 1 0 calls log filter? So again, we're going to be calling 20 to 30 of them a day. With these leads, I would call, and everyone to their own. Some people like leaving voice messages, some don't. But every time we leave a voice message, it's going to take you anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes per person. So our goal is to get in and get out. We have different things we have to accomplish in our day of real estate. So I would call these people, let it hit voicemail if they don't answer, and then, but not leaving a voice message. If you care to leave a voice message, your voice messages have to give that lead a good reason why they would want to call you back if that's what you're looking for. Simple thank yous and call if you have any questions are unlikely to get return calls. Okay, so you have to kind of dangle a little carrot sometimes, giving them a little bit of information, but if they want all the details, they have to call you back to get that information. So that's your first call filter. Goal, keep it at 0. And for those of you that do have several leads in here, it will take you a couple of weeks because you're playing catch up at this point. Now, for those of you that are in here that have been calling their leads, know that just because we're calling, it doesn't mean someone's going to answer. So that's your second call filter. So your second call filter is your number 2 new leads need to make contact. And I'm just going to add that non-responsive to this one as well. So what this filter does now is it's pulling up all the leads where you've tried calling them at least one time. Okay, so they no longer are sitting in the 0, the number 1 filter, because we've had at least 1 call on them. So here we can see that these call like 4 calls, 3 calls, 1 call, so on and so forth. So all of these leads have calls on them. We still have the same rules with respect to the phone validity and the pipeline. These are leads we have not yet connected with and potentially have a good phone number. Now, these leads here, we have not contacted by phone in the last 2 days. Okay, now you can change this number if you want to do it every 3 days or every 4 days, but the higher the frequency, the more likely you're going to get them to answer sooner rather than later. Now, this filter is also why I would suggest only calling 20 to 30 a day on this filter, because everyone that doesn't answer is going to wind up in this filter 2 days from, like, if you made those calls today, it'd be 2 days from now, they're going to be in this filter. So it's always going to be compounding. So that's where you only want to bite off as much as you chew. And just because you have several hours today doesn't mean you're going to have several hours in the next couple of days or next week to be able to do this. So there's 14 leads in this list. Again, this is a list where we want to keep it at 0. Okay, so all of these leads, these leads we can essentially power dial, especially if we've had that first phone call where we let it hit the voicemail to determine that it is actually the lead, right? So when we open up these leads, again, same idea. It's going to pop up and you're going to have your lead navigation right here. Now with these leads, to power dialing them, we're kind of following Beverly Ruffner's rule. She says 23 seconds. I say anywhere between 23 to 25. That's going to be 4 to 5 rings on the receiving end. Okay, so if you call somebody and the phone rings 4 to 5 times, most people are going to answer if they had any intentions on answering within the 4 to 5 rings. Otherwise, they've just silenced the ring and you're letting it ring, wasting valuable time. In some cases, you will get a call back because they just missed the call, right? So 23 to 25 seconds. So again, to power dial this, you're just going to let it ring, waiting for that 23 to 25 seconds. We're going to hang up. It's going to default on no message left. So you save and continue, and then you do the next lead. So then we would do the exact same thing with this one, 23 to 25 seconds. You let it ring, you hang up, save your call, and then you're moving on to the next lead. Okay, if you have 3 leads that don't answer, you've just accomplished those calls within a minute and a half. Okay, so it really allows you to navigate and push through this call list really quick, giving you the opportunity to speak with more people in less amount of time. And then as well, you're going to potentially get those callbacks. So once we've called those 3 people, so we made a couple calls today, they've fallen off this list. So we can see that there's now only 12 individuals falling into this list. Those 2 that I just so-called called from the system are going to be automatically back in this list on Saturday. So they'll be back in here Saturday for me to essentially try again. So if you call QA test today, QA test is going to fall off and automatically reappear in 2 days from now, and so on and so forth. So that's where it starts to compound, especially if you have leads in your number 1, because you know you're making calls today, then you're going to be making calls tomorrow, and then the next day and the next day. It all keeps compounding. So if you have a lot of leads in your system, again, that's where you want to bite off as much as you can chew. But for the next couple of weeks, it will be call heavy because you're playing catch up ultimately. Now, once you are caught up in here, the good news is that the 1 and 2 filter are really only going to be leads that have registered within the last 2 weeks, because most people are going to answer by the 6th to 8th call attempt just out of curiosity, right? They see your number continuously popping up, but they have no idea who it is that's trying to get a hold of them. So most will ultimately answer. So those are your first 2 filters. Again, we're trying to clear them out. 20 to 30 on this one. Number 2, you are clearing that out daily. Okay. Now, for some of you, you may have a magnitude of leads in your system, and you can't keep calling them every 2 days after you've called them at least 8 times, let's say. So that would be your number 4 filter. Okay. So we're going to skip number 3. We'll get back to number 3. So number 4 is basically showcasing to us, these are all the leads, and there's no one in here, but these are all the leads that we've called at least 8 times, so 8 or more times. We still haven't made contact with them. We still potentially have a good phone number. And then what we've done with these leads is they have to be active within the last 30 days. And if they are, we're going to try to reach them every week. So once a week, they would populate into this list. So it's the same idea as the number 2 filter. It's just you're reducing the frequency of your calls, and it's only as long as they've been active within the last 30 days. If you have time and you have a bunch of leads in this list and you know some aren't active, you can flip this to is not, and then just go apply. It would then show you all the leads that follow all of these filter criteria but have not been active. So it just gives you, if you have, again, that extra time, these people are not your highest priority, but definitely we still want to connect with all of our database. So that's your number 4. Now we go into your number 3. Okay, so your number 3 is for all the people that we've made contact with. So we've made contact or moved them anywhere further through our pipeline, but we haven't sold them yet. These individuals have been active within the last 30 days. So these are the ones that we've made contact with and have been active in the last 30 days. Now we're going to get to the tags in a moment, but these are your check-in tags. Okay, so your check-in tags are what's going to help you stay on top of your leads after you've actually connected and determined their timelines and so on. But these leads here all fall within this criteria set above. So we've made contact with them. We may have thrown some tags on them, but we haven't thrown a check-in tag on them yet. So anyone in your made contact, some of them will have calls and some of them might not have calls on them, because again, if a lead responds to you via SMS, it's going to move that pipeline to made contact. So sometimes we still need to have a conversation with those individuals. So our goal really with these leads is to really get them off of this list and ultimately into one of your check-in filters. Okay. So how you do that is simply by adding a tag to them. So every conversation we're having with a lead, the importance of information to gather is the when, the why, the what, and the where, in that order of importance. Not necessarily the order that you're going to be getting it from your lead, but that's the highest priority to the lowest priority. So the when, the timeline, right? So the timeline for you guys is the most critical, because that determines to you when they actually anticipate actioning their criteria. Anyone in here, the criteria is the easiest bit of information to get, but one of the most commonly overlooked questions is, when do they plan on actioning that criteria, right? So always trying to get that timeline. Then their why, understanding why they're moving, what's their situation, you know, what's maybe holding them back from making a move sooner rather than later, right? So the why in connection to that timeline is going to allow you to better educate, offer support, assistance, resources, and really connect with that person with respect to their situations and their whys. Then it's the what and the where. The what and the where is essentially your criteria, what they're looking for and where. Easiest piece of the puzzle to complete. It's also one of the least of your concern when you are reaching out to them. Yes, you definitely want to be sending them valuable properties, things that they're going to be interested in, but it's not going to help you convert them. It's what you're doing as an agent that's going to help you convert them in understanding in your follow-ups. So this also will go into your tagging, but every time we talk to a person, we should be able to add at least 1 or 2 tags to them. Again, we do have a full list. Some of these are going to be duplicated, so just disregard that. But we can add all the tags in for you. Again, if you don't see them in your system, it's just email support and in a shebang, we can have them all loaded in here for you. So the tags that are connected to this specific filter are your check-in tags. Okay, so your check-in tags are really how often you should be following up with this person based on that conversation. So whether you ask when's the best time to follow up, or if it's just solely based on timeline, like if they're 6 months out, 2 years out, whatever it might be. So your 1 week check-ins are typically your hot to trot leads, right? We want to be following up with them weekly. And your follow-ups are really calls, text, whatever it might be, but it's checking in on them weekly. Your 2 week check-ins are typically as well, they're still fairly hot to trot. They're just a little bit further out. So they're probably closer to the 3 to 6 months mark, probably close to 3, 4, 5, maybe in there. Always using your best judgment though. Your 1 month check-ins are often your 6 to 12 months out. You have your quarterly, which would typically be your 12 to 18, and then your 6 month is 18 plus. Some of you may also want to, add in an annual check-in as well. Sometimes you feel like I don't need to reach out to people every 6 months. Once a year is probably fine based on that conversation. So let's pretend that this person is a 1 week check-in. Okay, so you just select that tag and then you go done. So now this person is on here. But now, if I go to the next lead, you're going to notice that this list drops to 2 leads, okay? Because I threw the check-in tag on that individual. And so in order to qualify for this list, you can't have a check-in tag on you, okay? So what this list is the people then that we still need to either add tags based on situations and timelines and so on, that we don't know yet how often we should be following up with them. Okay, this can get very confusing for some people. So if you have any questions or need me to repeat, just raise your hand or ask a question. You've got the chat, the Q&A. It can definitely be a little bit overwhelming for some. Now, the check-in. So the follow-ups with your leads is one of the most critical aspects of being able to convert them. Right? We tend to be so anxious to speak to these leads in the first place, but then all of a sudden we drop the ball and forget to follow up with them. It happens to everyone and really in any industry. So the check-in tags allow you to help stay organized. So some of you may use the tags, just solely the tags. Some of you may use tasks instead, and some of you may use a combination of tags and tasks. Right. So again, if you guys do have an assigned trainer, we can always schedule something with you to kind of go over and create a plan that's going to be the most effective for you, because no one runs their system, identically. So you do have your check-in filters down here. Okay, so again, disregard the duplicates. We then have your 1 week check-in. So what this check-in filter is basically it's pulling anyone that has your weekly check-in tag on them, and they have not been contacted by phone or text in the last 7 days. So there's one person in here because they have that weekly check-in and they have not been communicated through SMS or phone calls within the last 7 days. So similar to number 2, as soon as you action either a call or a text on this person, they're going to fall off this list and automatically reappear in 7 days. Okay, it's the same idea with your 2 week check-in. So it's going to be 14 days. So there's 2 people in here. Then you go into your monthly, it's 30 days. Okay, so the 30-day check-in, so monthly, quarterly, and the 6 month are your check-ins through phone. Okay, so we should be phoning these people. Now, you don't have to talk to your lead in order to offer them a check-in. You can call if they don't answer, leave them a message. It's just letting them know that you're here and you're ready, and making sure everything's good on their part. You can follow up. You can call, leave a message, shoot them a text right after, like, hey, if there's anything, I'll follow up with you again next month, whatever it might be. Now, this is where it can get tricky for some of you. Definitely just trying to see if there is another quarterly that hasn't been added. No, so there isn't one. I'm just going to see if there's anyone else. So there's one person in this list, but they were potentially contacted 23 hours ago. So with these filters, you can see I've got a 1 week and a quarterly. Okay, so this is, again, where it might get a little bit confusing for some of you, but you can piggyback your tags. Okay, so let's say tags are something, especially with the check-ins, It becomes a habit, right? Throwing the tags on, moving tags, and so on. So let's say you had a quarterly check-in on somebody. So 90 days you're calling and you leave them a voice message, maybe shoot them a text. But you feel like, you know what, I want to keep calling this person until I actually have a conversation with them again. So you have two options. You can throw a 1-week check-in tag on them as well, okay? Or you can create a task. If you throw the 1-week check-in tag on them, this lead is also going to continue to fall into that weekly check-in filter every week until you remove that tag. Okay, so it just kind of reminds you to follow up. Your other option would be to create a task, right? So creating your task, and then every time, let's say you have this task here, let's say you call, you do your little follow-up, still doesn't answer, you just push your task, right? So I'm going to push this now for 7 days. Right? I'm still going to be overdue, but you just keep pushing the task. Everyone is different. And some people definitely get overwhelmed. But once you start to utilize the tags and the filters, that's when you start to have those aha moments and realize how not complicated it actually is. So with these filters as well, when you're looking at your check-in tags, one thing you might notice is there's no filter with respect to activity. Okay, so if we're doing a follow-up with people, you don't necessarily be concerned is they're being active or not. There could be different reasons behind that, but definitely the people that might be on your quarterly check-ins because they are, 12 plus months out, they're not necessarily going to be active all the time looking at listings, but you still want to be there and ready for when they are ready and active to start looking at those listings again, right? So there's nothing to do with activity on here. Again, your check-ins are just that. So really what it comes down to is daily is just running through your filters. Okay, so you go through your number 1, 20 to 30 a day. Then you're going to go through number 2. You're going to clear out that list every day. Then you can, if you have number of people in your number 4, the number 4 people will also be in your number 2 list, just so you're aware, because it's just, these guys have had 8 or more calls, but they're still going to show up in number 2 because they've had at least one. So you may want to do number 4, then number 2, entirely up to you. But number 2, you're essentially clearing that out daily. Then you have your number 3. These lists here, you're contacting them as often as you feel comfortable. You can also add a was last contacted, like last 7 days, last 3 days, whatever it might be, so that you're reminded to keep calling these people. It's just going to automatically spit them up into this list for you. And then we're trying to get the tag on them. We're trying to have conversations with these individuals so you can throw them and look into one of your check-in filters. So you're going through your check-in filters, making sure there's no one in there. Now, if you are tasking your leads, just one thing I suggest with all of tasks, whether they're to do with your check-ins or whatever, is to only task the people that you've communicated with. Okay, the ones that you have not communicated with are essentially going to be in one of these filters if you can call them. Okay, so only task the ones that you have already communicated with. Otherwise, you're just going to over inundate yourself with tasks, and important tasks end up getting overlooked because you're getting way too much, notifications and things going on. But do make a habit, if you are tasking, to check your calendar daily. Right, so it's like you open up your system, I would go to your calendar. Your calendar is going to identify to you any tasks that you might have. Okay, so any tasks that might be in the system. Now, another great feature in here is that ability to connect this with your Google Calendar. So you can see here I have the choose calendars to display because I've connected my calendar that I don't actually use, but apparently it's pulling the Mother's Day from there. So the great thing, if you guys use Google or G Suite, if you don't normally use that, and let's say you use another email provider, you can still create a Google account and sync your calendars to whatever calendar you use. It could be, a lot of people use the calendars on their iPhones and so on. So you can sync, you can feed it all in here. But how you would connect it to your Google is under your user preferences. So here you have your integrations, and you just basically go add new account and you log into Google, okay? Now, when you connect it with Google, every time you create a task in your CRM system, that task is going to create a calendar event in your Google Calendar. So I'll show you what that actually looks like. So we use the integration, and we use it on our training team does it for everyone that's getting check-in. So if you guys have had training and your trainer is following up with you, seeing how you're doing, we're using a campaign, and it's automatically creating check-ins, and there's the connection here. So you can see here that there's a check-in call that's logged right here. This is a task created in the system, the CRM system. So when you have it in your Google Calendar, it is going to give you the title of that task, any notes, like the details pertaining to that task, as well as it's going to give you a direct link right into that lead. So if you guys are out and about and you all of a sudden get that push notification for your phone that you have a new task, you're going to be able to open up that lead right from the go, like right on the go. And then you can action your task while you're, sitting in your car waiting for your clients or wherever you might be at that moment. So that's a great way to stay on top of those as well. Now, before I continue, again, you guys are taking it all in. Is there any questions or need any clarification? If you want to speak, because you feel like your question is going to be better, heard if you are. Okay, so we've got Priyanka raising her hand. So let's just allow Priyanka to talk here. Just because sometimes it's easier to ask verbally than it is to try to type it out. Priyanka, yes.
Hi, Crystal. How are you?
Good, and you?
Good. I missed about the Google Sync. So can you go through how to create the sync?
Yeah. So you just go right up here to your user profile, and then you go to user preferences, and then just into the integrations tab. And all you need to do is click on add new account, and then you log into your Google account. It's just going to basically bring you to the Google login screen where you log in and set the permissions. So if I click on this, so you see here, right? I got to sign in. You just go through those actions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then everything will show up in your Google Calendar when you're setting those. Some people create their tasks, their check-in tasks for around the same time. So they're all showing at the same time in their Google Calendar rather than taking up time slots throughout the day. Everyone's different, right? It's at the end of the day is what's going to be the most effective for you to stay organized, or know, like every day at 11 a.m. this is when I have all my check-in calls, right? Or 11 and 4 every day, right? So everyone is a little bit different as to how they would want to maneuver through their system. Yeah. Was there any other questions out there other than Priyanka with respect to filters, anything that we've kind of reviewed already? Again, your trainers, if you have one, if not, just again, reach out to support. They'll be able to help and assist you and in arranging for a training session to specifically go over your system. But again, just go in and start using them. You'll be amazed. All of a sudden, you'll be like, oh, this makes so much sense now, because you're actually seeing it in action. You're seeing how it's moving from one spot to the next spot to the next spot, right? Now, some leads that might get overlooked in this list are the leads that have bad phone numbers, right? So we haven't yet created a filter for that, and I can definitely do that. But it's pretty straightforward. So if you wanted to have an email only list, and do I have one saved? There's your email only list. So this one we don't need. So your email only list is for the people where we know that their phone number is invalid. We can't call them, but their email is essentially valid, right? So the phone validity, email validity. This would be your email only list, okay? Now, you can also save these filters, okay? So if you guys go in through your filters and you wish to save a filter, it's really straightforward. That way you don't have to they'll show up in your drop down here, okay? So you can see here, there's some personal filters as well. If you want to create a filter, you just give it a name. So I'm just going to call this email list 1. And then you can either create it as a personal filter or a company filter. Some of you may only see personal filter. If you only see personal filter, that's simply because you do not have admin rights in your system. You're likely a sub-user and you have no admin rights, meaning you see all your leads, but you can't create filters on behalf of the company. For any account holders or team leads or those who do have admin rights, you will see the create company. So the create company means that anyone within your organization, or if you bring on a buyer agent or somebody else with a user account in your system, they would also be able to utilize this filter. It shows up in the company filters list. If you create this as a personal filter, this filter will then be personal to the user account that created it, meaning it's not for everyone to use, something you created for yourself. So some people will create them both and modify their personal a little bit differently, but that's the difference. So I'm just going to create this as a company filter, and then you'll see it'll show up in the drop down. So there's the email only list 1. Then it's just a matter of selecting that filter and away you go. Okay, so these are the ones that likely wouldn't be following into any of the call lists because we don't have a good number for them. So you can send these individuals mass emails or knowing, or the bad number campaigns, things like that. Now the filters in general, I've been advised that they are going to be doing some updates. I don't know what they are yet. But this is how it works now. So we do have the ability. So again, there's a lot of filters in here that you guys can leverage to create very specific audiences for you. So for example, if we wanted to pull up all of our first-time buyers, I'm just going to go, they have to have either one of those tags. So any tags, you can do so within seconds. So I've got 9 leads in my system that are first-time buyers, so to speak. This allows you to then, shoot off communication with those individuals that might be reflective of their situation. Now, maybe I wanted to pull up all my first-time buyers that have not been contacted. So was not contacted, and let's just say by phone in the last, 30 days. So no one in the last month. There's 7 of them. So now 7 of these leads are first-time buyers that have not been contacted by phone. I have not attempted a phone call on them in the last 30 days. So you can keep stacking them nonetheless. Another great filter that you guys may want to utilize is being able to determine where your leads are looking to buy. Okay, so that is, you have the city, the home type, and the price. Okay, so let's say you have an open house coming up and the open house is in Toronto. We can easily apply this filter and it's going to show me all the leads in the dashboard. So there's 56 leads in my system where their saved search is currently set for Toronto. They could have additional cities that they're searching in, but they're at least have one of the filter criteria is that they're looking in Toronto. So this is where, again, you can blast out a communication with respect to the open house because you know that these people are looking in Toronto. You may also want to narrow it down to the type of home. Okay, so the buying home type. Maybe your open house is going to be a condo. Okay, so we want everyone then that's looking in Toronto that has their search set up to receive condo listings. There's now only 21 of them. You can even do it as far as price range as well. This one might be tricky, but so if you have the buying price, you can do a range equal to or greater than, equal to or less than, whatever it might be. So let's just do the equal to or less than. So let's just say I have somebody and I have my condo and my condo is listed at 850,000. So maybe I want everyone that's looking at the $950,000 or less. In here, you can apply that filter. So then we're going to be left. So they have so these people here, they all fall into that criteria. Now you can see that this person is at 1.3, but that's because their lower limit is 650. Okay, so that's where this person would fall in. So this would be your like definite audience of the most interested of that open house or of that new listing that you might just have gained, things like that. So you're able to do that. I noticed that a lot of individuals will start adding tags with respect to locations. If it works for you, fantastic. But you don't need to do it because you can use the filters easily to be able to do that if you've got their search set up in here accordingly. I'm trying to think of other ones. You may have leads where you've added campaigns to some people and you don't know if you've added the campaign. So you do have, for example, a campaign, and you can do has all, has any, has none, right? So if I want to pull up everyone, for example, that does not have the home locator with sold, for example, I got everyone in here. It's basically not on that campaign. If we do, it's tricky because a lot of these things are old. Home locator. Let's just do with sold short. It's still not going to be any of those there. So yeah, there's no one in there. But this is a great way to be able to find who's on what campaign. So should you want to mass assign the campaign to somebody? Yes, Priyanka.
So Crystal, I integrated my Google account with Agent Locator Calendar, but I'm not able to see anything in my Google account.
You won't see it because you just did it. So it's any task moving forward right now.
Okay, and how long does it take to get the integration done?
Well, do you have any tasks in your system?
I do.
You do?
I can see those tasks in my Agent Locator Calendar, but I can't see it on my Google Calendar.
Yeah, because those tasks were pre-existing prior to your integration.
Oh, okay,
right?
okay.
Yeah.
So now the ones which I create will be displayed in the
Yes.
Google Calendar.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No problem. No problem. But yeah, for everyone in here, just play around with filters because there's a lot of different things that you can engage in, right? So if you wanted to pull up what your last call result is, for example, I want to call everyone where my last call result was no message left, for example, which means the last time I called them, that was the result I got. So there's 28 of them. So there's, again, go through your list, play around with these filters, see what they do when you have some time, because you will be able to, again, stack these filters to create specific audiences for yourself nonetheless. You can also see everyone that's receiving listings, who has saved searches, things like that, right? So, or your sources. So source, again, is where that lead came from. So if you wanted to pull up everyone that came from a specific source, let's say you have one that you created as like referrals, for example, you can pull up all the people that are essentially deemed as a referral. But that's really it for this webinar today, as far as the filters and everything go. Again, was there any questions? You guys are, I know this is your first session. Whatever question you have, I can promise you somebody else is probably thinking the same thing, but is just not asking it. So if you have any questions, now is your time. You can, again, raise your hand, use the Q&A. It's entirely up to you. And then next session, just so you guys are aware, is going to be all about your template. So creating those emails and SMS templates and things like that. How to add GIF to your emails so that you can create moving objects in your emails to encourage or increase your click rates. So that's something that we'll do. And then we'll also be giving some example SMS messages, things that you can use to help you engage your leads and so on and so forth. But any questions? You guys are so quiet today. So quiet. All right. Well, if any of you do care, we do run these. I run these twice a day. So you guys, one of the most common things I will receive is I signed up for the whatever time event. I'm not signed up for the 1 o'clock. You're signed up for both, okay? So because the way that I created is so that if you miss the morning session, you know that, or the afternoon session, you know you still have an opportunity to catch the evening session, which is exactly the same essentially, although there might be different questions asked and things like that depending on the subject. But all of these, again, they are recorded. You will receive the email the following day from Zoom, as well as you will also get that notification if you go onto YouTube. We launch everything on YouTube as well. Now, in connection to this, you guys may have this training site. So it's the training.agentlocator.ca. One of the courses, if you go down over here to the lead generation conversion section, you are going to notice that there's the filters. So these are the first initial 3 filters, the 1, 2, 3, and then these are the follow-up ones. So if you need to kind of recap and watch them specifically, or anything kind of that we're discussing here, this is where you're going to be looking. So Brenda, in the evening, it is at 7 p.m. Eastern. 7 p.m. Yeah, 4 p.m. Pacific, and I guess that would be 5 in Mountain and maybe 6 o'clock Central. Start to learn all the time zones across the board. Perfect, no problem. Awesome. Well, I thank everyone for hopping in today. If you need further assistance directly, by all means, reach out to our support team, or reach out to your trainer. They're likely sending you or have sent you some sort of communications. We can definitely jump into your system, kind of take a look at what you're doing and structure your sessions so that they better match you, your system, what you're doing so far, and really create an end goal or solution to get you to where you want to be. But thanks, everyone. I will be signing off. Thanks for hopping on, and maybe I'll see some of you later tonight. If not, I'll see you all next week.